Thank you, Zach. It's a subject that has confounded the state and thousands of affected Virginia families for years.
We're talking about how Virginia cares for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In February, the Department of Justice issued a report finding the Commonwealth in violation of federal law, putting too much emphasis on institutional care and not enough on keeping people in their community.
Our Sam Brock has been holding state officials accountable and speaking to families firsthand about what they've seen as the successes and failures of Virginia's system.
Tonight, he joins us with a new perspective. Sam?
Stephanie and Bill, last month we brought you the story of Janet and Sharon Strauss, a family desperate for services that would keep Sharon, who has an intellectual disability, living in her Ashland community and not in an institution. Tonight, a very different viewpoint told through the lens of two parents who say their son Jason needs an institution, could never have the same quality of life outside of an institution. A conflicting perspective that also paints a fuller picture of what state lawmakers are up against. Maybe it's coincidence, and maybe it's not, that Jason Kinzler's horse is named Traveler. After all, Jason has an imagination that knows no bounds, and Traveler is the vehicle that takes him where he wants to go.
Oh yeah, he's jumping up and his hands are moving, he's smiling.
Jane Anthony, Jason's mother, says the therapeutic horseback riding is just one way her son explores and connects with the world around him.
He goes to Special Olympics. He goes to Easter Seal Camp in the summer. Volunteers come every Tuesday night. Getting him out in the community makes him, really, he's truly part of the community.
And Jason's community spans the gravelly roads of Great Falls, Virginia, to the hallways of the Northern Virginia Training Center in Fairfax, where Jason has pedaled, played, and propped his head
and down again
for the better part of his 36 years.
He has Angelman Syndrome. It means he's missing the teeny piece of his 15th chromosome.
Look, Jason.
Jason has the cognitive functioning of a 6-month-old child, can't speak,
38-11 inches,
and will readily consume inanimate objects, a condition called pica. When he was 3.5, Jason's parents admitted him to this training center, NVTC, a process Peter Kinzler, Jason's father, describes as sobering and bittersweet.
There's joy because he is who he is and he's wonderful to visit. There's pain because of who he isn't and who he will never be. Jason is different and wonderful in his own way, but not on the normal scale that I had grown up with in terms of what you expect to give to a child and to get from a child.
Accepting Jason's condition took time for both parents, who say they want nothing more than to give their son the most fulfilling life possible.
Hi, Jason, it's Mommy.
So they've chosen NVTC, an institution and a subject of increasing controversy among families with disabled loved ones and state leaders.
It's been a hardship. It's been a panic.
Recently, we interviewed Janet Strauss of Ashland, one of the thousands of Virginia family members on a waiting list for specialized services and petrified by the prospect.
Let me go get juice in my hair, okay?
Her loved one will end up in an institution.
They are humans, and they have a life just like we have. They are just confined with our disability.
I think there's a consensus today among most people is it has to be done and it's the right thing to do.
Virginia Delegate Kirk Cox, the House Majority Leader, is talking about transitioning people with disabilities like Jason from institutions into a community setting.
We're just way behind on that stuff.
Cox says it's time for Virginia to pick up the pace as the Department of Justice threatens to bring a lawsuit against the state for, quote, violating the civil rights of people with disabilities and continuing a system of unnecessary institutionalization.
When you close a facility.
But Cox explains Virginia can't just start shutting down institutions for, among other reasons, the families who still find comfort and value in institutional care.
Some of the parents, that's all they've known, so they're comfortable with that. So how do you transition those particular folks? How do you educate those particular folks? How do you do that?
To think that they can make judgments without talking to the people whose children are getting the services, receiving the services, is just makes no sense to me.
I think they need to come for a tour. I think they need to come here and see that this place is not closed off, and that just because the word congregate care is in there doesn't make it wrong.
There are 66 people that go every day off campus to work.
CBS 6 recently took the tour Jane Anthony recommended for critics, where facility director Dr. Mark Diorio explained that residents combine on-site activities like vocational training, pool therapy, walks on the nature trail, with off-campus development. The horseback riding is paid for by parents, but the state organizes a host of events, from circus and camp trips to work programs and interaction with students that move the residents off-site and into a new environment.
There are those who have children in the community who don't feel that they want their children in a quote-unquote institution, but we don't think of it. We think of it as a community of folks like my son, and it's far from an institution.
And for parents like Peter and Jane, they say far from the life experience they'd be able to offer their son anywhere else.
The community is a great place for those who can function in it, and we need to build more community, and there's not a parent here who would not be behind that. But don't get rid of something, the part that's working in Virginia.
Traveler just put his nose in the camera.
Reporting from Fairfax County, Sam Brock, CBS 6 News. And in a recent conversation with Dr. Bill Hazel, the man in charge of the state services for the disabled, I asked, do you think Virginia will have institutions 10 or 20 years down the road? He said yes, but they'll likely be very different, focusing on respite for families who need it, or specialized medical and dental care like they have now, even some permanent housing. But Hazel said there won't be a one-size-fits-all scenario. It's just too complicated. Back to you.
Thank you, Sam.